Aitah for thinking about leaving my girlfriend. After she finally agreed to get help for her depression, when I 28 meters first met Hannah 30 ta, she was the kind of person who lit up every room she walked into. She had this strange mix of chaos and calm, like she was always one breath away from falling apart, but somehow holding it all together with laughter. We met at a small cafe downtown where she worked part-time while finishing her degree. I ordered coffee I didn't need just to see her smile again. Within weeks, we were inseparable. Within months, I'd fallen in love. But love doesn't always stay easy. Sometimes it rots quietly beneath the surface, and you don't notice until everything beautiful starts to crumble. About a year into our relationship, Hannah changed. It started small. Days when she didn't get out of bed, moments when she'd stare into nothing, her coffee cold and untouched. I thought it was stress. Everyone gets tired sometimes. But soon, those moments turned into weeks. She stopped going out, stopped laughing, stopped being her. I tried everything. Cooking for her, taking her out, writing her little notes like she used to do for me. But it was like talking to someone who was drowning underwater. No matter how loud I screamed, she couldn't hear me. When I'd ask how she felt, she'd just whisper, "I'm fine. I'm just tired." But she wasn't fine. She stopped working. Bills piled up. I started working extra hours to keep things afloat. I told myself I was doing it for us, but secretly I was starting to resent the silence, the constant wait, the feeling that I was living with a ghost. Then one night, after coming home from another double shift, I found her sitting on the floor of our bedroom, crying, not loud sobs, just quiet shaking. She said she'd thought about ending it. I froze. I didn't know what to say. I held her until morning, terrified to sleep, terrified that if I did, she wouldn't be there when I woke up. That was the night I realized how fragile everything was. I begged her to get help. She refused. "Therapy doesn't work for me," she said. "I just need time." So I gave her time. 6 months of it. 6 months of walking on eggshells. Of watching her fade and telling myself this was love, that love meant staying no matter what. But what happens when staying starts breaking you? I stopped seeing my friends. I missed birthdays, family events. I became the caretaker, the emotional punching bag, the one who caught all her storms and tried to pretend they didn't hurt. And when I tried to talk about my own pain, she'd flinch, like my feelings were an attack. Sometimes she'd lash out. "Do you even love me anymore?" she'd ask. "I'm here, aren't I?" I'd say. But even as I said it, I didn't know if it was true anymore. Last month, she finally agreed to see a therapist. She cried when she told me, saying, "Please don't give up on me now. I'm finally trying." And God, that hit hard, because I want to be proud of her. I am proud of her. But all I could think was, why now? Why after all this time when I'm already drained? When I've already lost pieces of myself I don't know how to get back. It's like standing in the ruins of a house you built together and she's finally saying, "Let's fix it," while you're holding the ashes. She tells me she loves me. She says she needs me. And part of me still loves her too. But when I look at her now, I don't feel the same spark. I feel exhaustion, fear, guilt. I know she's sick. I know it's not her fault. But I also know that I'm not the same person I was when this started. I'm angry that she waited until everything fell apart to care. I'm angry that I became her savior instead of her partner. I'm angry that I don't know who I am anymore without her pain. She's been better these past few weeks. She smiles sometimes. She's cooking again. She even joked yesterday that she wants to go hiking soon. But when she said, "I'm so glad you never left me," my heart sank. Because I wanted to. I still do. And now I don't know what's worse, leaving her right when she's finally getting help, or staying and pretending I'm not already halfway gone. I don't want to be the villain in her story, but I also don't want to keep being the ghost in mine. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for thinking about leaving the woman I once promised I'd never abandon? And though she finally decided to fight for herself. Part E. The weight of staying and leaving weeks passed after Hannah started therapy. I watched her slowly regain pieces of herself I hadn't seen in months. Her laughter returned, albeit quieter than before, and she started cooking meals again, leaving little sticky notes on the fridge with small reminders, "Don't forget to breathe," or "Coffee's ready, love." Part of me wanted to celebrate. Truly, I wanted to feel relief, like the storm had finally passed. But all I could feel was this gnawing emptiness in my chest, a sense that I was holding onto something already broken. Every time she smiled at me, I felt both joy and guilt at the same time. Joy because I still loved her, I still loved her. And guilt, because I realized that loving her didn't feel the same as it used to. Loving her now was wrapped in responsibility, in duty, in an obligation to a person I once recognized but was slowly losing. I tried to talk to her, tried to explain how exhausted I felt, how I was grieving the version of our relationship that had been buried under months of her depression. She listened, nodding, sometimes crying softly, but the guilt in her eyes, the fear that I might leave, made it impossible for me to speak the truth. That part of me wanted to leave. That part of me felt broken. I began to wonder, had I stayed out of love or out of fear? Fear of being alone, fear of being called a villain, fear of abandoning someone who depended on me. I felt like a shadow living in the same space as someone I loved. My own feelings, my own needs were ghosts that no one acknowledged. Not even myself. One evening, I sat on the balcony, staring at the city lights, my phone buzzing with a message from Hannah. I feel lighter today. Thank you for not leaving me. I wanted to reply, to tell her I was proud of her, but my fingers hovered over the keyboard, because the truth was, I was drowning in my own guilt, and no words could explain that. Days later, I saw a text I wasn't supposed to. She had left her phone on the counter. A notification from her therapist. Progress looks good. But remember, external stressors may cause strain. Consider your partner's needs too. He looks exhausted. I felt like the words were a hammer striking my chest. She was finally getting help, and yet everyone, even her therapist, could see what I couldn't admit. I was spent, broken. The nights became unbearable. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about leaving. Not out of malice. I could never betray her like that. But because I was afraid that staying would destroy me entirely. I imagined packing my bags quietly while she slept, leaving a note that tried to explain everything. But even the note felt inadequate. And then, something happened that broke me even more. One morning, Hannah hugged me tightly before leaving for therapy. She whispered, "I don't ever want to lose you. Please don't leave, even if it's hard." Her voice cracked, and I realized, the harder she begged me to stay, the more I wanted to leave. Not because I didn't love her, but because I loved myself too little to keep carrying her pain alongside mine. I started keeping a journal in secret, writing down every moment, every thought I couldn't speak aloud. The pages filled with anger, grief, guilt, love, and fear. It was there, in the quiet of the night, that I admitted it to myself. I might leave. Not because I want to hurt her, not because I stopped loving her, but because staying might kill the part of me that is still alive. And then, weeks later, I found a letter she'd written but never sent. It was tucked into a notebook on the shelf. "I know I've hurt you without trying. I know I've taken more than I've given. If you leave, I won't blame you. I want you to be happy, even if it's not with me. You are allowed to have a life outside of me, even if I cannot yet." I felt tears burn my eyes. She had known all along that I was suffering, yet her love was selfless, almost painfully so. The next day, I told her the truth. I told her I loved her, but I felt broken. That staying might mean losing myself. That leaving didn't mean giving up on her, but it might be the only way to preserve both of us. She held me, trembling, whispering, "I don't care what happens. I just want you to be happy." I realized then that love is not always about staying. Sometimes it's about letting go before everything shatters completely. And so, I made a choice. One that would haunt me for the rest of my life. I left quietly, carrying nothing but my journal and the memories of a love that had once burned bright, but had become too heavy to hold. Months later, I heard from a mutual friend that Hannah was thriving in therapy, smiling again, laughing, living. And I was learning to breathe without guilt. Learning that sometimes leaving is not betrayal. Sometimes it's survival. But every night when I close my eyes, I hear her whisper, "Please don't leave." And I wonder if survival is worth the pain of leaving behind the person I once promised I'd never abandon. Part E. Crossing paths with ghosts. It had been a year since I left Hannah. A year since I walked out of the apartment we had shared, carrying nothing but my journal and a suitcase full of memories. I had moved to a new city, started a new job, tried to rebuild the pieces of myself that had been buried under months of her depression and my exhaustion. I thought I could move on. I thought I could forget the weight of it all. But ghosts have a way of finding you, no matter how far you run. I saw her first by accident. A coffee shop on a rainy afternoon, the kind of day that makes everything feel heavier, more urgent. I was hunched over my laptop, typing a report when she walked in. Time stopped. Hannah. Older, yes, but not in a cruel way. Stronger, brighter. She moved with a confidence I hadn't seen in years. Her hair caught the light, and her smile, that small, quiet smile, hit me like a punch in the chest. I wanted to run. I wanted to stay frozen in my chair. But before I could decide, she saw me. Her eyes widened. And then, that same old, familiar mix of fear and warmth. She froze for a moment, as if trying to gauge whether this was real or just a memory. I stood up slowly, unsure of what to say. Hannah, I whispered, my voice barely audible over the rain tapping against the windows. She stepped closer. I didn't think I'd see you here. Neither did I admitted. We talked for a while. Awkwardly at first. The conversation was filled with small talk, the kind that barely scratches the surface, but I could see it in her eyes. She had healed. Not completely, perhaps, but enough to live again. And yet there was something she wasn't telling me. Something in the way she glanced around, nervously, as if afraid someone might be listening. I've been different, she said finally. Therapy helped. I learned to manage things. And not the same person you left. I nodded, unsure how to respond. I hoped you would be okay. I just wanted you to be happy. Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they weren't only from pain. They were relief, strength. She took a deep breath and handed me a small envelope. Open it when you're alone, she said. I didn't know why, but I felt a chill. Something about her voice, calm, steady, but tense, told me this wasn't just a letter. Later that night, in my tiny apartment, I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written in her precise, familiar handwriting. If you're reading this, then I guess the universe wanted you to know the truth. There was a reason I refused help for so long, and why I stayed in that dark place longer than anyone should have, even you. I wasn't ready. I was afraid of losing myself completely if I admitted how deep the pain was. And I was afraid of what you would do. I knew you loved me, but I also knew the weight of it was breaking you. I couldn't risk losing you, or hurting you more than I already had. And now I'm ready. But I need you to know something. I never stopped loving you, not fully, but our love at that time wasn't healthy. I think we both know that. I survived, and I hope you did too. I wanted you to know, because I couldn't say it when we were together. I read the words over and over, my hands shaking. She had loved me, even as she broke me. She had thought about my pain, even while buried in her own. She had survived, and part of her still loved me. Yet she let me go, knowing it was the only way we could both live. And in that moment, I understood the cruelest truth about love. Sometimes loving someone means letting them go, even when every part of you wants to hold on. I folded the letter, pressed it to my chest, and cried. Not tears of anger, not tears of despair, but tears of release. Because I realized something that night. Leaving Hannah wasn't betrayal. Staying with her then would have been. Walking away saved us both, but even with that understanding, the ache remained. The ghost of what we were, the love, the heartbreak, the months of watching each other suffer, would never fully leave me. I kept her letter on my desk, folded carefully as a reminder. Love is not possession. Love is survival, compassion, and the painful, beautiful ability to let go when it's necessary. And sometimes, even when it's over, it leaves you with a quiet, haunting gratitude for having loved, for having survived, for having known someone who could break you and still inspire you to live.